Shouldn't really puzzle you why there isn't an outbreak, because if you know anything about Freemasonry, all of our past, just this last election, Bob Dole, per congressional records, is a 33rd degree Mason, a member of the Illuminati type organizations. Jack Kemp was a member, 33rd degree Mason. Obviously, Bill Clinton he was a Rhodes Scholar out of his school, so he became the Skull and Crossbones, which puts you into a very highly secretive organization, as well as the Order of the Rose. I believe he's a member, and then you've got Al Gore, who believes he's God, per his latest book. We've got some real problems in our leadership because they belong to these secret organizations, and these secret organizations listen to a god called Lucifer, or the angel of light. They do not call him the devil, and I can guarantee you who his targets are, and there are people that believe and trust in Jesus Christ will be the targets that they go after. So anyway, we got big problems, so it doesn't surprise me why they're silent, why they aren't letting us know, and why the press isn't letting us know either. If you know anything about the Council on Foreign Relations Trilateral Commission, you'll find out that this plan was in place a long time ago. In fact, the idea I gave you about this theory of not using blackmail and not having to blow up the United States wasn't really an original idea. This was a movie series on ABC back in 1984 called America with a K. By the way, the K stands for Ku Klux Klan, the Aryan race, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed people again. That's what they're after. They want the Aryan race. And this was, I can't remember, whoever the guy, Chris Christopherson, is also one of the enlightened ones. But I could document this video tape by tape. It was a 5-part series, 12 hours long, where he was found in a prison camp. Then at that point, he went back to Heartland, USA, which was Nebraska. You'll see Heartland, USA in just a few minutes on the back of a Kix box. At that point, they had moved people from other parts of the country into these campsites and literally didn't value them as human beings. So this thing here was taken off the shelves immediately after they came on the TV screen on ABC. I think it was because it was so close to the truth. I know it's one of the rods that God could use. God could use so many different methods to bring about the judgment of America. It's amazing. And I think he'll probably use not only just one, but he might use a combination of 3 or 4 of these rods that he has in place to judge this nation for our wickedness and for our sins. Here's another gentleman on the East Coast. His name's Shelley Keshvili. He's a 4-star general in charge of our military services. He was born in Georgia, Russia. His dad was a Nazi. Just recently, you saw him at the gravesite in the papers where his dad was a Nazi and he was going back there to bury his father. They didn't really give us a whole resume on him when President Clinton put him in charge of our military forces. They wouldn't really tell us where he came from or what his plans are, but I do know one thing: he's a Russian, and he's in charge of our military forces. He said on that slide he would like to see Albanian and U.S. troops side by side. Well, I'm sure he's pretty happy on this day when the Albanian troops were there at Fort Polk, Louisiana, at one of the training centers with American soldiers side by side. I mentioned in the middle of that map that plan for the trading of soldiers. That was in the Kansas area. Well, this was Fort Riley, Kansas. The Russian soldiers were practicing exercises at Fort Riley, Kansas. Here you see some of the Russian soldiers at Fort Carson, Colorado. Here you see some German soldiers at Fort Chaffee, Arkansas. Now that fort has been since closed down. I'm sure they're at another place because they also have an air base here out of the Denver Post that shows them out of Alamogordo, New Mexico. There used to be a German. Did I say Russian? I meant German. Those were German forces at Fort Chaffee. This is one of their air bases now, German air bases here in New Mexico. We funded it, and we're training them. I've heard rumors anywhere from 300,000 to 3 million foreign troops on our soil. Many of these are in the national forest where we are not allowed to go except for the wolves and the birds and the bees type thing can go in there, but not us. I know I believe in the reports where I've heard there are soldiers east or south and north of us, both in the Canadian area and in the Mexican area. There have been reports. The numbers I don't know, but I do know they have troops on our soil, foreign troops. I do know that we have a man named Mikhail Gorbachev on the West Coast that's planning a globalized government. Used to be the head of the KGB, used to be head of the whole Russian country, and you got Saakashvili on the East Coast in charge of our military. We got Madame Albright, whose father was a communist in Romania, had problems over there, came over here to the United Nations. So we've got real problems in charge of our leadership. I know Bill Clinton was in Russia during the times many soldiers were in Vietnam dying for their country. So we've got some of our top leaders in this country that you could very easily tag socialistic to them in a minute and be very honest about it. One thing about it, you can bring the troops in real quick. It's hard to bring in the hardware or the equipment. Here's some Jeeps in Arizona, Soviet Jeeps. Here's some East Terrain vehicles in Montana, summer of '94. Here's a Russian tank in West Texas, but I think the picture up above probably tells more. It shows they're painting these vehicles from the typical green color, the camouflage color, to a white. When some leaders were asked, why are you painting them white? Why are they brought over here? And they said, because we need to paint them white, as if we're that stupid that we don't think they can take a 5-gallon bucket of paint over to Russia or over to Germany and paint them white. But I think the people are literally that weak. They are ready for consent. They don't want to look. They want to keep their head in that sand. And I can guarantee you, people, what we don't know this time is going to hurt us. It is going to affect each one of us personally, as well as our children and our grandchildren. Here's some Russian frog missiles in Texas in the bottom screen, and as well as the top screen. They were in Tennessee. This was a sign that wasn't very far from my house. They were spread throughout all over California. It says the new Cold War is coming. It isn't like they aren't telling us, people, what's coming. We should be aware. They literally, they're telling not just us in Southern California, they're telling the whole country. This is a Time magazine article, Russia back to the USSR, question mark. Well, I believe they're right. I believe that they have a purpose in mind. I don't see any other reason why Russia would be building these huge command centers under the Ural Mountains that cost billions of dollars. Some of these command centers the size of the Washington Beltway. They're getting prepared in case one of our rogue missiles, I don't know how many of you saw Red October, were fired back at them. They have the civil defense things set up, the subways, everything else, where they can go in case of a missile defense. We have nothing as far as civil defense in case of a nuclear attack. Here's Fort Polk training site. It says on there that it's an urban third world village. I wanted you to see what a third world village doesn't look like. It doesn't have row housing. It doesn't have apartment buildings. And it doesn't have houses. That's just this was in, by the way, it was in the Alexandria Daily Town Talk paper there, and so they talked about Saakashvili and all the people, Madame Albright, going to this training facility where we're going to train foreign troops on American soil. There's just a close-up of the same thing where it's located out of Alexandria, Virginia, and it just talks about how excited they are about this updated facility to train people in urban. Now, urban is city-type warfare, the warfare that you would experience if you wanted to seize guns and wanted to bring people into servitude. Here's out of the Chicago Tribune. It says, is it time to send UN troops to the U.S.? Well, here's how the brainwashing works. Here's the article. It says the first order of business should be to place an international soldier on every street corner in America. Let the UN soldiers stop the MAM, and pick up the weapons. See, you can't have weapons. You can't have the weapons in the people in the hands if they're going to bring us into slavery. Our forefathers knew that. That's why they gave us the Second Amendment. Our forefathers had lived in England where they couldn't worship their God without having their head chopped off. So they had the freedom of religion, but they knew that if the government got tyrannical and they wanted to take over, you better have a militia that has the weapons to make sure the government doesn't take over. That's what the Second Amendment was all about. But they also know from experience that you can't have weapons in the hands of the individuals and take them over. You can't. They will not do what you tell them to do until you get every single weapon out of everybody's hand. So I had a friend just tell me about it in Australia. She was so excited that they all turned in their weapons one day, and there was no problems at all. They're doing the same thing in England. See, this is a global community they're talking about. The Americans are the ones they're most concerned about. They're more concerned about Americans because Americans have never known what it is to be in slavery. They have no idea what it is except to go to their own bed each night and sleep and not do what they're told. They have their own mind of their own. And their own mind. And so we're at a case where they're concerned about this country. They're concerned how we're going to react